Welcome to our first DIY auto car review. In this episode, we'll be doing an ownership report on my old 1994 Acura NSX. If you're here, I'm sure you know all about the legendary status of the NSX, from the aluminum chassis, titanium connecting rods, and the fact that the legendary Senna had a hand in its development, and the fact that it changed the supercar game in the early 90s. But what was it like to own a $25,000 Acura NSX with over 160,000 miles? Stay tuned to find out. I wasn't actually planning on buying this car. I saw this NSX listed on Jalopnik's nice price or crack pipe column. It had an accident on record but seemed like it was in good condition. I found out that it had been worked on by the same mechanic for over 100,000 miles of the car's life. I rang him up and we went over its history. I had a lot of important maintenance done, and the accident was from someone backing into the car while it was parked in the shop. I said YOLO, put a deposit down, and flew out to West Virginia to drive this NSX sight unseen back to Detroit. The instant you sit down in the NSX, you know you're driving something special. The instrument cluster is clear and easy to read, the ergonomics are top-notch, and the visibility is better than anything I've ever driven before. You sit very low, so it feels like your heels should be dragging on the ground, and you can see the street directly in front of you, so it seems like you should be able to see the tops of your toes. Your eye level is below the door handles of most modern cars, so driving the NSX, you really feel like you're a mouse darting around elephants. With the thin A-pillars and the haunches above the front wheels, you can see every apex and know exactly where your wheels are. The designer took inspiration from fighter jets, and it shows. Honda did an incredible job. Some people scoff at the 270 horsepower that the V6 makes, but that's not what the NSX is all about. The essence of the NSX is the pure connection between man and machine. I planned my journey back to take the twistiest roads possible. Having only driven front-engine cars, the NSX's handling was a revelation. Without hundreds of pounds of engine sitting between the front tires, the NSX changes direction instantly. The unassisted steering feels extremely direct and responsive. The shifter is a joy to operate and has a precise mechanical feel, and you can feel the vibrations of the climbing engine revs through the shifter and the accelerator pedal. In the modern car era, where electronic buffers insulate you from the mechanical goings-on in your car, the connectedness of the NSX is surprising at first, but soon you wonder why all sports cars aren't this way. Most modern sports cars will leave the NSX in the dust, but the NSX driver would be having way more fun. And isn't that what it's all about? The other plus of the NSX is its looks. The design is striking and hasn't aged a bit. It's a great feeling pulling up to a car show in a $25,000 car and have people walk by Ferraris and Lamborghinis to gawk at it. Everywhere you go, people of all ages are happy to see the car and give you a thumbs up and talk to you. Driving an NSX makes you a minor celebrity. The engine sound is intoxicating. This NSX had an aftermarket exhaust, and I installed a cold air intake that opens up right behind the driver's side vent, which gives the engine a throaty growl. Add the fact that the engine revs up to its 8,000 redline with ease. I've never heard a V6 that sounds as exotic as this. I was lucky enough to take the NSX to a track day. Even though it was only my second time driving on a track, I felt like a pro in the NSX. So what's it like owning a high-mileage NSX? Surprisingly easy. When people make Accord jokes about the NSX, it's really a compliment. How many vintage Ferrari owners wish for a little Accordness while they drop 7 figures at the mechanic on cars with a quarter of the NSX's mileage? After getting home, I stopped by the dealer to have the timing change replaced for about $2,000. At that mileage on an interference engine, you are walking on thin ice letting maintenance like that go. Other than that, the NSX was problem-free. I drove several long trips to Chicago and Western Michigan, and the Acura was a joy to drive. A surprisingly roomy trunk will hold a lot of cargo. Other than the engine maintenance and cold air intake, I swapped the shift knob for an NSX Type R replica knob, which greatly improved the shifting feel. The paint on the repaired fender started peeling, so I had the car resprayed in the original Brooklands green, which is my favorite color on this car. I also refinished the wrinkling interior trim, which took an afternoon but improved the look inside the car. If there are any negatives to my NSX ownership experience, it had more to do with where I live. The NSX is a car that loves curves, while the roads in Detroit are long, straight, and full of potholes. I spent a lot of time worrying I'd bust up the suspension on a giant crater or get run off the road by some huge SUV driving on their phone. Driving outside the city was a joy, but in town where I did most of my driving, it was more nerve-wracking. The best part of all, even after the timing chains and the paint job and a new set of tires, I sold the car almost 2 years later and made a few grand. That's a rarity, especially for me. NSXs are continually going up in price. Are they worth it? Definitely. If I had new Corvette money, I'd buy a good condition NSX, restore what had to be restored, and drive it like it's meant to be driven, especially if I live somewhere with better roads. The NSX is a special car that deserves all the accolades that it gets. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and check out DIYauto.com for more DIYs and build threads. Or join the community and show off your own ride. Thanks for watching.